Where we going with it? Now where we going with it? Where we going with it? What? Going with it. Ha! Yo, where we going with it? Ha! Where we going? Going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time. How many years? About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time. How many years? About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I seen kingdoms come and I seen kingdoms fall. You can check it for yourself, you can read it on the wall. Like graffiti on the wall, metal nets is what it's called. I taught y'all in the past, now I'm back to teach you all how to elevate and repent from filthy ways. I know it's hard, but it feels good to fast for 30 days. I got y'all searching for the land that's across the burning sands, where the men turn into gods and the gods turn into men. The jewel of the Nile is in the motherland. Each one teach one, so go tell your brother, man. You're feeling down again, you got to snap back like a rubber band. Lord, going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time. How many years? About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time. How many years? About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. All the words I chant when I come forth by day. From the night, these sacred chapters I recite. Do my voodoo every day till I feel some things are right. Speaking in words of power, speakers get known. Ancient tradition, deep in your bones. Ancient wisdom, speaking in poems. Melodies take you deep in the zone. Going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time. About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time. About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. Too many youth wanna ride and die. I try to tell them about the I and I. In my presence, I got y'all feeling divine essence. I come through dropping jewels that's full of timeless lessons. Not Egyptian, I'm comedic, spitting poetic relics from the highest mind up to the skies to find where I am headed. I come when I be spitting, y'all be playing, hating me. I don't know, probably cause I'm serious like A and B. And C, we can like sometimes more than we would like. I got to get the gab, I was born to speak on mics. Got raw in me glowing, now I shine like skies in Cali. I represent the hood and that hood is the Nile Valley. They call it Hoppy, the illest of the niggas, nah, that's not me. I'm that godly representative, spit the hottest sentences with the eye for rule. I see the evil that lurks in you. I live by 10 virtues that stops me from hurting you. By you oracle, so nowadays I plan better. Now I walk in the presence of God's angels and ancestors, walking my path, speaking in code, talking in math. I got an inner divinity, mental serenity. I walk in my eye, even on my path alone in any zone. Man, I got heart like Indiana Jones. I'm not a raider, but a raiser of the lost ark, the monarch of the righteous covenant. You ain't liking it, you loving it. I show y'all sacred ways from the ancient of days. The metaphysical master manifesting the greatest displays of mind control. Connect the spirit, mind, and the soul. I rhyme with flows that opens up your mind so you grow like the trees, but of course not the kind that you smoke, but the kind that keeps you rooted in tradition. I bring it back like how it was in the beginning. Going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time. About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack. I'm going back to Kemet, styling, profiling. It's been a long time. About 3,000. Man, we got to bring it back. The days and times of living is getting whack.
Okay, my eye, can you guys hear us on Facebook? I know that the guys on YouTube can hear us just fine. I don't know why the sound was going through on YouTube, but it was not coming through on Facebook. I'm not sure what that is about, so we'll have to see if we can fix that for next time. But I need to know on Facebook if you guys can hear us now. I need like a yes in the comments or something, or a thumbs up in the comments. If not, I'm gonna change the direction of the sound. Okay, let me turn that off. All right, Facebook, can you hear me now? Is that better? Majudy Rock, can you hear me on Facebook? Can you tell me yes if you can hear me? All right, I'm still saying no sound. Okay, I'm gonna end this video. Dua for being patient with us on YouTube. I'm glad you guys were able to hear the song just fine. And yeah, I'm gonna just delete that and we'll start over with a new video on Facebook. Thank you guys for being patient. We were trying something new. It ain't work so well. It ain't work like we thought it was gonna work. So we're gonna figure that out for next time. Okay.
Seems like the light is too shadowy for today. All look dark.
Okay, I'll get my aunt Facebook. We're back on. So let me see, we'll give that a minute for folks to join so they can tell me if they can hear. Hopefully they can hear in a second. Facebook, can you guys hear me okay? Do you want me to lift the light up?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Okay, Bilal says he can hear. So maybe you guys can hear us this time. So apologies for the technical difficulties. Yeah, you know, it happens sometimes. Technology is an imperfect animal. So when we got it together, do our netter.
What'd you think it was?
The speaker, the JBL speaker.
So we can't do that now.
No, we cannot.
We're just trying to work some things out here with the lighting. You know, my melanin is taking up all the light in the room. Y'all know how that is. The burdens of being dark skinned sometimes.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think that's gonna get.
Okay. You want to get started?
giving a few moments for everybody to recalibrate back in the room. What's up? We got 11 on YouTube. We have 18 on Facebook Live. So I'll just get it started by saying Yeti, or welcome to the Crook and the Flail. We're coming to you with the authority, the wisdom, and the guidance of our ancestors with modern application. Coming to you with the spirit of Smai Tawi, which is the spirit of unity, is also with the spiritual charge of Saruj Tawi, which is to reestablish the traditions of the land. I want to say Onkin Ma'at to the righteous and respectable chat. We say Dua Netter for giving us your time and your attention. And we also say Dua Netter for deeming us worthy of your time and your attention. We are your hosts. I'm the Nasib Biddy Ross Uncle Kepper, and she is
Hemet Netter and Bar Ma'at.
We are your hosts, and we are with you and here for you through this quarantine time, because it affects all of us, not just one of us. All of us are affected by this whole thing. So we're of the firm belief that if we stick together, things will be better, or we'll all be better if we stick together. I think this whole challenge has taught us that, well, that old philosophy, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, because I know this thing kind of caught certain people off guard. So I want to thank everyone in advance for those who are inclined to give a donation. So let me speak about the donation, because that's always a very awkward thing in our community. We get real touchy when it comes to donation. So we need to just change it from donation to reciprocation. We all know that reciprocation is one of the 7 cardinal virtues of Ma'at: truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, order, and reciprocity. Reciprocation. It is said in several texts that I read, it says that Ma'at is breath to the nostrils of Ra. So Ma'at, reciprocation, is the breath to the nostrils of Ra. Just like you breathe in and you exhale, that's reciprocation. So now I go to one of the Sebaites, the book of the Papyri of Kun Anup, because we believe in the principle of as above, so below. So if it's the principle of as above and so below, and Ra is one of the names we affectionately call the creative force. So we are Credu Ra, Credu Re, Credu in Ra. We are children of Ra. So the same thing that applies to the creator also applies to us. So according to the Sebait, it says almost the identical thing. It says breath is like, Ma'at is breath to the nostrils of Ra. So here's what it says for us in the wisdom text. It says doing right is breath for the nose. It's the same thing. Doing right, Ma'at, is breath for the nose. Reciprocation is breath for the nose. So that means for us, Ma'at or Ma'atic behavior is what sustains us, just like the creator. So when you're giving a donation, seed is giving reciprocation, because we're a Ma'atic people. Ma'at is our supreme tradition. So see yourself as giving your personal contribution to our collective greater charge, because we all have the greater charge of Ma'at. So when you're giving a financial donation, that's your personal contribution to that collective charge to establish as well as maintain correct order. And I think most people don't know that there's a cognate word in the Irani Kemet, in the language of Kemet. There's a word called Ma'ut. Ma'ut means gift, and it means an offering. So we use that word, means gift offering. So let's look at what's going on in the chat. Like, it's time to do the roll call. Who's there and
well, first before we move on, Doreen Dua, she asked how to post the Cash App information. So our Cash App is Temple of Anu, no spaces or special symbols, just $ Temple of Anu. We also receive donations by PayPal to templeofanu@gmail.com is our email address that we use on PayPal. And thank you to those of you who have sent donations for episodes and communions in the past. Thank you in advance for those of you who are going to send donations today. Those donations are greatly appreciated, and we really, just from our hearts, thank you for that reciprocation. Yeah, So now we can move into the roll call.
Roll call.
Yeah. All right.
Who's out
So
there? Where you from?
yeah. So if everybody could just chime in with where they're watching from and let us know where they are today. And I don't know how many of us are in this area. We're already all quarantined inside, but we're probably even more inside today because it's rainy. It looks a little cold out. Like, I don't really know if folks is about that outside life today, but all right. So South Jersey is tuning in. I see that. All right. Shout out to South Jersey. What else? Where's everybody else from? We got a few more people on than just that. Okay. Dua Makra for posting the Cash App and the email address, etc., for people to connect. Somebody from the UK. We got Orange in the house. Orange, New Jersey, Bloomfield, Los Angeles, Oakland. Don't be bragging about how sunny it is in Los Angeles, Yazek Ray. I don't appreciate it. And then Sia says it's rainy and beautiful Brooklyn. Dua Nutter. South Carolina, United Kingdom. Shout out to across the pond, as they say. Brick City, Newark, Newcastle, Delaware, Newark, Delaware, also Newark, New Jersey, and Newark, Delaware. We got Cincinnati in the house, Columbus in the house, the Bronx in the house. That's what's up. Linden, New Jersey. Dirty Jers. I mean, well, yeah. Lafayette, Lower East Side, New York City. That's what's up. That's what's up. Columbus, Ohio. Okay. All right, I see y'all. Duanetta, thank you guys for tuning in today. And thanks y'all for checking in from where y'all are. So again, we just make sure we feel even more connected than usual by strengthening the bonds between us that stretch all the way across the country, all the way from here where we are in New Jersey, all the way to Dallas, Texas. Shout out Dallas, all the way to Oakland, all the way to LA, all the way to Ohio, Delaware, the Bronx, everywhere. Across the ponds, everywhere. So we're all interconnected regardless of distance.
That's one of the beauties in the upsides of social media.
Yeah. Give thanks.
So I want to give a big up to the first family of the Temple of Anu. I've been hearing a lot of good things. I know you all been staying in touch and staying present with one another in this trying time, especially for the less fortunate amongst ourselves, because everyone wasn't ready. And it's good to see people come together and pull together for those who weren't ready.
Yeah.
And that's part of the benefit of being part of a spiritual community, because I think we use the word spiritual community and family, and a lot of times it's nothing much more than a glorified study group where people are obsessing about our ancient history in the past, while us at the Temple of Anu, if anything, we're preoccupied on how we can add and contribute to that conversation about what is greatness. So we, in our inside personal doctrine in the temple, we have 2 charges. And they're very high charges if you accept them. The one charge is be the best that you can be at all times, with no excuses. And the other is do the best that you can do at all times, with no excuses. So when you're on it like that, and when you do that, it doesn't just benefit you, it benefits others at the same time, because we understand in the Afro-Kemetic context, there is no real independence, it's interdependence. And that leads me to one of my favorite quotes from, I think it's Ankh Shashanki. Yeah, Ankh Shashanki. It says, there is no good deed except the deed that is done for one who needs it. Those who struggle together with the people of their town shall rejoice in victory with them. So for us at the Temple of Anu, our spiritual community, we have our eyes on the victory through this crisis. So we're in a state of relaxation, we're in a state of hatep, because only when you're at peace and at tune with yourself can your ancestors and your deities commune with you, so you could properly navigate your circumstances. Well, wasn't we talking yesterday about the concept of spiritual community? The challenges of it is an upside philosophically, but there's also a challenge of it also, because many of us come from broken families or dysfunctional families. So when you say a word like a spiritual family, or even use the word family, for certain people it's a trigger. It actually triggers pathological behavior. What are some of the
Yeah.
thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, we did talk about that yesterday. And let me back up a little bit because as you were reading the quote from the Hosea, it reminded me of another quote from the Hosea that says, there is no one who abandons their traveling companion who Netter does not hold accountable for it, right? And so again, it speaks to this idea that we are all interconnected and we are all responsible for each other. And I just think that that's such a necessity for us to hold true in a time like this, that we have in having a responsibility to one another. How are we uplifting each other, and how are we holding each other up, and how are we holding each other together, rather than feeling like this is what I'm going through and this is what I'm doing, and therefore this is like me and my personal journey and my personal struggle, and forget everybody else and what they going through and their struggle and things like that. It's really crucial that we see our struggle as the opportunity as an example to other people for them to learn from. We see our struggle as something that is an opportunity for us to learn from other people. We see our struggle as an opportunity for us to create infrastructure in the community that supports us better, because if something in the community supports us better, then it will in turn eventually support other people better as well. Like it will give them something that they need. If it wasn't there for us, that doesn't mean that no one will ever have this need again, right? So when we abandon our traveling companion, or when we don't struggle together with the people of our town, we are missing out on the opportunity to really cultivate and really invest in African culture and in African community. Going back to what we talked about last communion, in a way that our ancestors really intended for us to do, and that the culture and the community is integral. So it's not about abandoning the person or releasing like the person's wants, needs, desires, but it's all about how do we understand and integrate that into the community and into the culture, so that we are taking into account the needs of the person, the needs of the collective, the needs of the future generations, all at one time, right? And so as we were talking yesterday about this idea about family, we really were reflecting on some past communions that I've done about family. And one of the reasons why we end up talking about this so much, or why I end up talking about this so much, is that I grew up with very deep connections to my family in a way that I recognize a lot of people didn't and don't have. And it gives me a vantage point that is different, and one that I'm grateful for, despite the fact that family is challenging sometimes. Even the best of our families is challenging sometimes, right? But I grew up with I remember as a child having both of my mother's parents were in our home. My father and my mother were in our home, and then my baby sister had not yet been born, so it was my sister and my two brothers. So there were 8 of us in our home, and so there was always an adult around. There were always other people around. There were always friends that my siblings had. Actually, my grandparents had friends, and my parents had friends who were always at the house and in the house. There was not a lot of privacy. There was not a lot of secretism, but that also led to a lot of like some of the systems of support that I find to be extremely important. Like, so for me, when I think about family, I think about like how we show up for each other, right? And I think about like in my family, as I was growing up, like my mother dragged us to everything. Like if my grandmother was doing something at church, we went to church with my grandmother. Like if my brother had a soccer game, we went to the soccer game. If my sister had a dance recital, we went to the dance recital. And it didn't matter if you wanted to go to the dance recital or not. It was entirely irrelevant, because it wasn't about you. It was about how you show up for the people that matter to you. And it was about how you reinforce their sense of confidence and their sense of connection and their sense of like that what they do and who they are matters to somebody, right? And so when I think about what it means to be a spiritual family, I think about how we take that concept of showing up for each other and take that to another level. How do we show up for the things that are important to people? How do we support their businesses? How do we buy their products? How do we read their books? How do we also tell them when we want to push them in the direction of making their work better, right? Because sometimes we as Black people, we criticize Black businesses and we're like, oh, well, I don't know if I could keep supporting that Black business because, but if we're family, then we should be able to tell each other, like, well, I want to keep supporting you, but something about your cupcake icing is bitter. Mm-hmm. Maybe you should use honey as a sweetener instead of molasses. Right. Like something, I'm going to need you to work on that because I love you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we don't just like stop supporting each other. We find a way to help the other person so that we can continue, and that in itself is also a form of support, right? So how do we show up for each other? And that's a crucial and integral part of what it means to be African family, and what it means for us to be spiritual family, and how do we do that from like a righteous perspective or a ma'atic perspective? How do we show up for each other in a way that builds each other's self-esteem, builds each other's confidence, and reminds us that we're not alone, and reminds us that we're loved and that we're supported and that people have our back.
Do you believe that us as a people at this point in our evolution, that besides the philosophy and the history, that we find ourselves to be socially challenged with building relationships with one another?
Yeah, I mean, I do. There's such a significant amount of mistrust. And I do actually feel like a lot of that mistrust comes from our childhood and comes from the experiences that we have with our families. Again, you know, you have a family of where, you know, where your parents were engaged in unhealthy things like drug addicts or criminal behavior. You had a parent who was in and out of jail. You had times where you were taken away from your parents and put into foster care. You had times when your parents didn't protect you from molestation or things like that. You had times where your parents beat you or spanked you or were physically abusive to you or to each other, physically and verbally abusive to each other and things like that. So it's very difficult to trust other people and to be vulnerable with other people and to be open with other people when we have this ideology that family is supposed to be first and that we're supposed to be safe with our family first. And many of us grew up in situations where we're not safe with our family. And so how can we be safe with other people if we're not even safe with our own families? And that's something that we really struggle with. And that requires a lot of healing. And it's not about, I think when we talk about healing from these issues, people tend to think that we mean like, oh, you should be healed so that you can forgive your family and forgive the things they've done to you. Like, forgiveness plays a role, but for me, my focus is not like how do we get back into those relationships with those dysfunctional people, because we as ma'atic functional people, I don't know that this person is going to become a healthy person, right? Like I'm not encouraging you to open yourself up and become vulnerable with someone who hasn't made a commitment to healing themselves, and someone who hasn't made a commitment to growing beyond that point, and someone who hasn't made a commitment to like becoming better for you, right? So you're committed to becoming better. You're committed to healing those things. You're committed to not perpetuating those issues, but they are not. So should you continue to engage in a relationship with that person? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that you do have to heal, because once you engage in a relationship with someone who doesn't have those issues, you can't bring those issues into that relationship. Once you come into a spiritual community like the Temple of Anu and you embrace it as your family, the goal would then be for you and for all the other members of the temple to work on getting rid of those issues so that you don't inflict those issues on each other, because we as a community are supposed to come from a place of ma'at, so we don't want to inflict those issues on each other. We don't want to perpetuate those issues with each other. So it's not necessarily about healing for the sake of your biological family. It's about healing for yourself and your future and where you're going, right? Sorry, I had scratchy throat for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, Ma'at is a high charge. We were also discussing, or you brought up an interesting concept yesterday. Would you call it moral fatigue in this time that we're in now?
Yeah, I was telling you about a conversation that Wabet Kisa and I had. She had forwarded me an article about moral fatigue, and we were just reflecting on the fact she and I are both still working right now, like working full time jobs um on top of just dealing with the quarantine and checking in with our families and checking in with the temple. Wabet Kisa and Wab Mentura have done an excellent job, I feel, of keeping me in touch with everybody in the temple, because I haven't spoken to every member directly, but I have been aware of what's been going on in like the group chats and things like that, because I'm in touch with the Saru, right? And the Saru is in line with all the members to various degrees. So I know what's going on with everybody. I would still like to talk to all of y'all though, but I haven't yet, right? So they've been checking in with everyone. They've been talking to everyone. And they're reporting things back to me. And so there's this extra work and this extra concern and this extra amount of energy or stress that goes along with taking care of each other during this time, taking care of extra things that need to be taken care of during this time, and it's creating a sense of like moral fatigue where every decision that we make is compounded by additional weight. Like, for example, the decision to go to the store is not just like, oh, I have to run out to the store. It's also like, I can't forget my mask. Do I need to wear gloves? When I get to the store, did I touch my face? Should I pick up something and then put it back on the shelf because now I've touched it? Is someone else going to be upset that I've touched it because now I've have I contaminated it? So there's all this extra stress and extra weight of every little decision where like normally we would just go to the store. Like we wouldn't think about none of these other things. And we're having to think about a measure of things and having to consider a measure of impact that we're not normally considering. And so some of us are probably feeling tired and probably feeling worn down and probably not feeling 100%, even though it doesn't necessarily make sense for us to feel tired. Like we're in our house all day, we're sleeping late, we're laying on the couch, we're wearing pajamas, you know what I'm saying? So you're like, why am I extra tired? But it's mental. It's not necessarily about what your physical body is doing. It's about the strain that we have mentally that's taking an extra toll on us. And creating that additional stress and that additional weight and that additional charge. And so, she and I were really talking about like, what does it mean to extend grace to ourselves and to be patient with ourselves, to have compassion with ourselves, and to understand like how it is that we can do what we can, but just hold ourselves to a different level of expectation, right? Like me personally, I am a person who holds myself to extremely high expectations. So when I'm not producing at the level that I think I should, I don't feel good about that. And the conversation that we had was very much like, but you have to produce now. Just thinking about how it is that we're producing now in this situation as being different from like under normal circumstances. Like 3 months ago, when you're producing really high level under normal circumstances, the level of stress on every decision and the level of weight on every decision is so different than it is now. And the backlash of every decision and everything that we do, the implications, the possible consequences of everything we do, it just feels so much heavier and so different. And that's something that we all need to keep in mind in terms of how we love on ourselves and take care of ourselves. Those of you who get our emails probably saw an email about the new moon in Taurus that just passed, and that email was talking specifically about that. Like, how do we rethink self-care in this new reality? Like, is it that we sit at home and soak our feet and wash our hair, or is self-care that we extend grace to ourselves and that we extend patience to ourselves and that we increase our aptitude, our attitude for gratitude? Like, we just make it a stronger and more significant point to have an attitude of gratitude no matter what, which is something that we're always supposed to do anyway. Sure. But in this situation, there's so many things that are going on that could cause us to feel angry, saddened, disappointed. So how do we find the silver lining? How do we hold on to the goodness? How do we appreciate the things that are there for us to appreciate? The lessons, the tests, the blessings. You know, how do we increase that? How do we hold on to that? How do we appreciate that instead of just relying on the feelings of the negativity that's dragging us down, right? Yeah.
Whatever thought, rest, and relaxation would be a trigger for stress. It's been an interesting time for me.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying the time. I've been enjoying the silence. I think the time is giving us all the opportunity to reevaluate what we say spirituality is. And we have to understand as spiritualists, our life is spiritual. And spirituality is not this thing that we compartmentalize as a series of kesu, a series of ceremonies that we do in the privacy of our homes before we go out into the world. And I think sometimes when we go out into the world, we're waiting for ripple effects from our ceremonies that we do at home to go out and impact us in our everyday lives. So we have spirituality compartmentalized as something that we do in the morning and something that we do when we get home at night, when really our lives are spiritual. So this time, these days, I've actually decreased in my ceremony and I've actually increased in stillness and silence. Since we're quarantined, there's whole that you witnessed it, there's whole days I just sit in the silence and stuff like that. So sitting in the silence, it gives me a chance to listen to my ancestors, listen to the Natural, and get feedback. Understand it gives feedback to or about what I've already put energy out there about. Because remember, we're doing our katsu every day. We're doing ritual. We're doing our ceremonies. We're putting energy out. But when do you actually sit back, rest and relax, and learn to receive? That is the essence of divine dialogue. So prayer and affirmation is talking, while meditation is listening. So if we're in dialogue with the divinity, dialogue with our ancestors, it's a conversation. So you can't do all the talking.
Yeah.
And I'm a proponent of the idea that if you listened all the time, you would rarely have to ask your creator or your ancestors, because our creators and our ancestors are always opening doors, always trying to give us the alley-oop, but sometimes we're so mentally busy that we forget to actually listen. So my ancestors in these quiet times, they're telling me they're proud of me, they're telling me good and great things about myself, but also it's telling me the subtleties on how I'm to proceed forward. Now in this day and time, I constantly get the message of don't worry and don't fear. That's why every time I come over here, I'm telling people don't worry and don't fear. That's what spirit is feeding me back. All the years of martial arts was about never worrying and never fearing. So now it's giving me the opportunity to demonstrate that and apply that to a real life situation that's affecting not just me, but all of us and stuff. So don't worry and don't fear. We already spoke about how fear paralyzes your immunity. We spoke several sessions about psychoneuroimmunology. So fear paralyzes your immunity, which then makes you susceptible to the thing that you think you're fearing or that you think you're avoiding. But fear also paralyzes or affects the ability of your ancestors, the Netaru, to flow in and through you. Mm-hmm. And that's very imperative for us as spiritualists. We have to learn how to receive and let vital force flow in and through us, because we are trying to train ourselves to be warriors and not worriers. Mm-hmm. So fear and worry are forms of negative meditations. So now if we're talking about the dialogue, if praying and affirming is talking and meditation is listening, and now we're finding out that worrying is a form of negative meditation. If you're going to listen to something, then you might as well listen to positive talk, right, not negative talk from the lower mind, but positive talk. So we might as well listen to divine counsel, the tepra, the tepre, the meronetzer. Right. So I'm embracing the silence. I'm enjoying the time because it's giving us a time to actually slow things down to find out what it is that we believe. slow things down to find out, do we even believe what we say we believe? And also, it's giving us the opportunity to shift, change, and transform from belief to knowing. Because that's the ultimate goal, to operate in full knowledge, in full wisdom. I'm of the belief that I espouse wisdom even over knowledge. Wisdom is the correct application of knowledge. Knowledge is just data and information. So I rather know a few things and operate in wisdom and excellence than know a whole bunch of things and can't demonstrate anything. I think I constantly go back to this about what's going on in the conscious community. We're inundating the people with massive amounts of information, but there's zero demonstration about the information that we say is going to save our people. So ultimately, the showing, or ultimately the knowing, is in the showing through demonstration. So if you have to show and prove through demonstration. If you can't show and prove through demonstration, then things in your life will be slow to move due to stagnation. What's going on in the chat? We got the quiet chat today.
Yasek Ray said African philosophy is not optional. And Mintu Ra said, worry as a negative meditation, that is a great perspective. Then Magra says she feels like she can't express anger anymore because she's pretty relaxed. And Michelle said having more time for self is so divine and sacred to me as a woman. Yeah. Well, y'all make it sound so very nice. I gotta admit, like, it ain't quiet for me. Like, like I said, because I'm still working. So I actually feel like the chaos is heightened. And so it's just a matter of using the tools and the things that you know to manage that and to stay conscious through that and to not be overwhelmed by that and to not be swept under by that. And, you know, again, extending like grace and patience to yourself and compassion for for having to have flexibility and learning to adjust in a new reality, right? Because none of us knew this was coming per se. None of us were, no matter how prepared we weren't prepared. Do you know what I mean? And so all of us are learning how we respond through this process and learning a lot about ourselves and a lot about who we are. And like you said, a lot about what we really believe in, because if we really believed in the tradition, then we lean on the tradition, right? Sure. As our path forward. And those of us who stumble or who run and who don't know what to lean on and don't know what to do and don't know where to go, it shows us that we were weak in terms of our faith in the tradition and faith in our tools and faith in ourselves. So.
And we're presented with an awesome opportunity that we've never been presented with before. So it's like we came out of the winter and we got to sit out this spring. So we have the opportunity to build our energy, build our thoughts, our plans, and our ideas, because I think our reading said it should be balancing, going towards balancing out in June. So that means you have that much more energy to get stuff accomplished during the summer, because summer is supposed to be the high energy time. It's not the time to actually go on vacation and do all the things we normally do. It's a high energy time, so that's the time you're supposed to be accomplishing the most, because remember, after June 21st, the energy starts decreasing and it starts falling. That's what the fall is for. So the fall and the winter, we're supposed to be hibernating, planning, conspiring. And conspiring means just to breathe together, you know, planning and conspiring for so you got 2 seasons where you take it down and you go within, you hibernate and you conserve energy, and then you got 2 seasons where you spring forward and totally commit to manifesting.
M-Town Vet said, we all ears, my brother, because this is divine inspiration.
Okay. So let's, in the spirit of divine inspiration, let's move to the health part of the program. Yeah. So let's get the notes out. So today we're going to deal with moringa. Last time we dealt with black seed oil, because, you know, there's a lot of pessimistic talk going on in our community, and and people are actually fighting and personalizing people are fighting and personalizing insults towards one another about people's personal theories about why we're going through what we're going through. Some people are saying this pandemic is from 5G. Some say it's created from a bat or something like that, from the wet markets in China. Some think that it's leaked from a laboratory, and it really doesn't matter. What concerns us, or what should concern us, is what is your solution? What are you going to do? So if it's, whether it's coming from a bat, a virus, whether it's natural, or whether it's coming from a laboratory, that means it becomes our responsibility to know how to fortify our health. It's not up to the doctors in the medical profession. Our health is our responsibility. So we have to figure out what works for us. It's a very dangerous thing to wait for science and the medical profession to figure things out. And that's no disrespect to the doctors or the scientists, but I just have a concern because everything is politics. Just like when someone is running for office, they look for backing, and they look for financial backers to fund their drive. So who's funding the doctors? They say big pharma, big pharmacies are funding the doctors in order to do all this research to figure this stuff out. You're going to need money. So it's the corporations, the drug corporations are investing in the doctors to figure out this research. So now we have to understand that there's cures, which is always going to come from nature, and then there's patent cures. So the big pharma and the doctors are only concerned with patent cures and not natural cures. So because they have millions of dollars invested in patent cures, they want to own it. They want to make money off of how to benefit and heal the rest of the society. So they'll go to the point where they'll ostracize natural healing, or just curb the market where you won't find out the efficacies of natural healing, just so they can push the patent healing. So no disrespect to doctors, but they have to work for the concern or the interest of those who are funding them, because they can't make money off of teaching people to breathe properly. They can't make millions of dollars of telling people to do yoga or take these over-the-counter herbs and things that grow naturally with little to no deleterious effect upon the body, because they're looking for active components in the plants while we look at the whole plant. We understand the active components in the plants, but we understand phytonutrients. We also understand cofactors in the plants, and all this makes up the plant. So now as spiritualists, we approach healing a little bit different than the big pharma, which is interesting. Pharmacy is a Greek word. Pharmacopoeia means magic weeds. So they actually believe in herbology too, but as we've gone from the past to now, things changed in their approach. So people like us, he
said Bach, moringa oil, Bach tree, moringa.
All right, good looking, because I was going to speak on it. I was like, I can never find the metal net to words for these things that I'm talking about. They'll say that it comes from ancient Egypt, but they'll never mention the word. It's weird. So they'll go down and say what black seed oil is in Arabic and Chinese and stuff, but they'll say the ancient Egyptians used it also, but they never give the word. So good look in the session of Susan Jetty Ankh Ra. So Ba'ak is moringa oil. But what I was saying, our approach to the herbs is different. So as a spiritualist, like Sanjetti told us last week, what we call the umbrella term for all African spirituality, whether it's coming from Kemet, South Africa, West Africa, North Africa, we're going with the word kimoyo. Kimoyo means vitalism. It's the principle of vitalism, that everything is energy, or everything contains a secret component of energy to it. And for us as Africans, through Kesu, through ceremony, we can access the inner dimensions of something that appears to be physical on the outside.
The kimoyo, if I'm not mistaken, came from a lesson that was done by Asari Imhotep, or it came from his book, just to give
I'm giving props to Cinderella. Now, big up to Asari. It's all family.
Right.
It's all family. That's the scholastic branch of the family, and they keep us tight on our philosophy, so we could teach from a firm foundation and not just guessing our way into truths and stuff. So much appreciation, much dua to Sanjetti Ankh Ra and Asari Imhotep. What's the book? Aluja. Illusion, right?
Illusion, yeah.
Illusion, volume
Volume
1
2,
and 2.
yeah, volumes
Both.
1 and 2, yeah.
So I was saying that the natural perspective to address a plant is to talk to it, to get permission, to let your intentions be known. And they'll call that spooky, but it is what it is. That's the traditional indigenous approach to it. And when you take plants from nature, you're supposed to actually leave an offering in nature. That goes back to my the principle of reciprocation. So big pharma, they just snatch the plants up. And we got to understand, remember, the plant is a living thing. The plant is a living consciousness. That is the principle of kimoyo, vitalism. So we respect the fact that the plant is a living thing and we commune with it. So now, what happens when you don't respect the plant and when you don't talk to it? So when you don't talk or commune and let your intentions be known, the nutritional value draws down into the roots. So now when they're taking the leaves and stuff and they're putting it in their beakers and they're trying to find out what's the active components in it, is nothing there because the plant drew it all to its roots. While the spiritualist is talking to the plant, so he has the whole plant, the phytonutrients and the cofactors, both known and unknown. So along with that and their ability to become an alchemist, to transmute the vital principle from the air, to transmute the vital principle from the sunshine, to transmute the vital principle from the minerals in your food. That is the thing that's keeping us healthy. That is the thing, how we stimulate our immunity. Is not necessarily a scientific process that we do under the investigation of microscopes, looking at our blood platelets. We as spiritualists are alchemists. We understand that there's a vital principle in the air. So air is not just H2O2. It is not just wind, it is chi, it is shechem, it is prana. So through our breathing exercise, we could access the raw material, the cosmic material of the sun that's in the air. That's why the air for us as Kemites is a divine being called Shu, which means light. So light transmits electricity also. Same with water. Water is a divine being. The water is a consciousness. So it's not just H2O. It's not just fluid. Water has prana in it. It has chi in it. It has sekhem in it. There's actually been research by, I think, some Japanese man, I think Emoto, forgot his name. So he did research to show that water is a program. Water actually holds memory. So when we look at our water, we should pray over our water. And understand, I was listening to Professor Smalls. He said we are our ancestors. We are, because our Y mitochondrial DNA and our the Y DNA and the MT DNA, we are who we come from. So when we drink water, we're actually libating our ancestors in our blood. So when you're drinking your water, you could talk to your water or talk into your water to activate the vital principle in the water, to program the water with a charge. So when you're drinking the water, you're replenishing your ancestors and the divinities that's in your blood. This is kimoyo. This is the principle of vitalism that we operate on. So it doesn't matter if you believe the virus is natural or comes from the laboratory. What are you going to do about it? It doesn't matter if you believe it comes from 5G. They say 5G is dealing with ionizing and non-ionizing rays. They say now the atmosphere, I don't think it's quite here yet, but I think they're saying the atmosphere is going to be flooded with these new radio waves. And I think that the philosophy is that it's supposed to be resonate at 60 gigahertz, and that is supposed to be the vibration of oxygen. So therefore, this new radio frequency in the air is supposed to interrupt with the uptake of oxygen in the body. So it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. If it's true, what are you going to do about it? So one, the virus, which is natural, which has always been here since the beginning of time, so it becomes our responsibility how to address and fortify our immunity to address this concern. So we address it through diet and lifestyle factors in psychoneuroimmunology. So now if there's 5G, if there's anything relevant to it, that's more of an energetic thing, a vibrational thing, therefore a spiritual thing. So we would need crystal technology, and we would need things like chlorophyll. Because anytime you're dealing with frequency vibration, you're talking about radiation. So you're going to need to have foods in your diet that absorbs the negative effects of radiation. Because radiation is normal. Radiation, magnetism is normal. It comes from the earth, it comes from the sun, but that's natural magnetism. Notice we always run into problems when we have man-made things, when men are trying to imitate the creator. So now we have all these negative forms of magnetism, like these lights, these computers, these phones. And whether you believe in 5G or not, that's your right. What I think is we'll find out about it 10 to 25 years down the line. Because we're constantly dealing with a government and a structure. They're more interested in rolling out new technologies. So they give you the benefits up front and then you pay for it with your health later.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the commercials on TV that we saw 25 years ago? Now you see counter commercials saying, if you took this drug 25 years ago and you're experiencing cancer, such and such, call this number because you may be now able to sue. I think Johnson & Johnson, the baby powder, the talcum powder, now they found out that has been causing uterine cancer in women, and we was putting this stuff on the babies 25 years later. So once again, we're the same people that trusted that the pharmaceutical industries did, what they were supposed to do and give us a safe product, all to find out 25 years later that it wasn't so safe. So I believe all the talk about 5G, people necessarily can't prove it up front, but we'll find out about it later. So I don't know about you, but since I've had these new phones, the new technology, they keep updating, I noticed that my eyesight is weakening. I've always, anytime I've been in front of a computer for a certain period of time, I feel it actually draining my energy. So they talk about non-ionized and safe radiation. They consider that negligible. Oh, my eyes is weak. Oh, I feel funny. They consider that negligible, but how negligible is it if we keep exposing ourselves to it for 20-something years? So we have fast food benefits, but the danger is going to come back to bite us in the end. Just like fast food, you put it in doesn't food taste different in the microwave? It does something to the food where it does not taste natural, so it's warm, but it changes the molecular structure of the food. So therefore, when it changes that molecular structure of the food, it's no longer considered food no more. The body doesn't recognize it anymore. So the same thing with the fast food industry, it gives us this artificial gratification up front. And then next thing you know, you're dealing with poor digestion, cancer, high blood pressure, all of this for indulging in immediate gratification. So I'm not going to get into 5G conspiracy. I just think there's something to it that we'll find out about it later than before up front. So we're left with the principle of vitalism. Can you pull the principle of vitalism from the sun? When you look at the sun, can you pull the principle of vitalism from the air? Can you pull the principle of vitalism from your food? Can you activate these things? This is what we use Hekau for. Hekau are not just words of power. It's a mental posture also. I feel like I'm rambling. What is it? Artificial light is hazardous to oneself. Yes, frequencies from false light. All the light that we're under now is hazardous light for longer periods of time.
That's the Nut B. She said that she posted a video on Madagascar who discovered a herbal solution to COVID-19 on her page. The World Health Organization turned down an invitation to review this natural resolution for themselves. As the global authority on health, that says a lot about their intentions to actually heal people.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about cures and patent cures. That's an example. They want a patent cure and not a real cure. And once again, I'm encouraging everybody to follow the protocol because it's now law. You get the ticket if you don't wear that mask, if you don't wear them gloves when required. So do all that. We're going to follow all of that. But under our mask, we're not picking the mental posture of fear.
Yeah.
Because we understand now through our talks about neuroimmunology, we have to keep a positive mental frame. I don't understand how they say exercise and eat right, then at the same time they say that's not going to protect you from the coronavirus. It's like, what? Anyway.
Majudy Ra asked if thought is enough to, like, when you're praying over water, if you think it or you have to say it out loud. Like, is thought enough, or do you need to say it out loud in order to empower your water with specific words and intentions?
As a divine being, the thought will always be good enough, but we're at where we're at, so the actual vibrating of the words psychological. Remember, it's psychoneuroimmunology. So the vibrating of the words in your organs when you're doing it will probably be more beneficial till you get to the point where you don't feel like you need to do it out loud. Just like Hessian chanting, when we go hard with the Hessian chanting, it's supposed to be loud. And then as you go longer and longer, because there's a tradition in Hesse, they say if you haven't chanted for an hour, then you just playing around. Right. So after an hour's period of time, the level of the volume goes down. It goes down, it gets quieter and quieter because now you're reverberating or vibrating internally. It's supposed to be a mental thing. So now your mouth is shut, and now your mind is going, and then next thing you know, you just hear, then just still. So now, how it works in martial arts, when you're physically moving, you're supposed to be still inside. And then when you physically still, energy is supposed to be moving inside.
Michelle said we need breathing exercises more now than ever because it feels like the masks are restricting our breathing.
I would say the coronavirus, when people die of that, they're actually dying of suffocation. Understand, so if this thing that they're saying is true about the 5G, the 60 gigahertz, and it resonating on the same level as oxygen, therefore affecting the ability to uptake oxygen, low oxygen levels are the precursor to cancer. So this new disease, whatever we call corona, COVID, whatever, is going, we're going to see the rates of cancer go up, because when your cellular respiration or your cellular oxygen levels drop to 40%, that is the beginning of cancer. So now we have this disease that's affecting the respiratory system. Now they got us wearing masks. So it's very imperative that you practice some serious breathing techniques, at least 10 minutes a day. If you can in the morning, if you're home and you got that time in the morning at sunrise, go out, get that crisp air and breathe in and out for like 10 minutes and try to look at the sun gently and stuff like that. That actually stimulates your endocrine system in the body. So get in those raw materials and stuff. And even when you get back home from wearing the mask, like you might have to learn to train yourself to breathe 10 minutes a day, several times a day, like how we do our So it should be, so we breathe in the morning, breathe in the afternoon, breathe in the evening, breathe in the middle of the night or before you go to bed. And also the minerals. Yeah. We have fulvic acid and humic acid. I think fulvic acid brings nutrition and oxygen to the cells, while humic acid detoxifies the cells, brings it out. And what I think I said crystal technology. You get yourself a quartz crystal. Quartz crystal clarifies energy that's coming inside your body, because all the minerals emit as well as transmit light. So having a quartz crystal, a double terminated quartz crystal, turns you into like a generator where the energy comes through evenly through your body. Or get you some black crystals. You got tourmaline and you got shungite. And also you could get iron pyrite. These things supposed to block negative forms of radiation or harmful forms of radiation into the body. And what I was saying, chlorophyll fights against radiation poison. You could get chlorophyll from, I would say, go with the iris sea moss and bladderwrack. That protects your cells from negative radiation. Since we're concerned about the airways being filled with even more radiation than there already is, so pretty much go hard with your greens, your spirulinas, your chlorellas, your sea mosses, and your bladderwrack. A mask is the last thing the person needs unless it's the infected person. And that's true, but it's law now, so it ain't much we could do or argue about that.
For those of us in New Jersey, it's not law everywhere. It was in the state of New Jersey, it was an executive order that was passed that says that we can't go into stores or other places of business that are open right now without wearing a mask. So because of that, again, for those of us who are in New Jersey or other places where your governor or your mayor has passed an executive order to that effect, wear a mask. You just have to. But you don't have to wear it longer than necessary. There is no law in New Jersey or anywhere that says that if you go out to walk your dog, you have to wear a mask. You don't have to. And I would agree that personally, I don't think we need masks. The original conversation from the CDC was that you only needed a mask if you were sick, and you also, if the COVID-19 virus itself is not airborne, which no one has yet said that it is, if it's not airborne, then wearing a mask does not protect you from a person who is 6 feet or more away from you. It's seems silly to wear a mask if you are keeping your distance from other people, if you are not, in a situation where you guys are close together. Seems silly. So me personally, I go outside to take out my garbage, go to the car, get gas, what have you. I'm not wearing a mask while I'm in the car. I'm not wearing a mask while I'm walking around my neighborhood. I'm not wearing a mask in my house. Though that seems unnecessary. I'm only wearing a mask to go into the store, and only because it's required. And that's that. So so Jetty said the N95 masks and equivalents like them do restrict the amount of fresh air that you inhale. It is important not to have on a respirator mask longer than necessary. Again, it's required in the state of New Jersey when you go into a store. Not required while you're in your car. Not required while you're walking from the store to the car, or while you're walking from the car to the store. Not required to take out your trash. Not required to walk. I have seen people out here like taking their kids for walks wearing masks. The whole family's wearing masks. I'm like, why are you wearing a mask? Y'all live in the same house. You're protecting yourself from each other. That seems silly. If you're walking down the street and you see other people without a mask on, just get out of each other's way. Do you know what I mean? It's just that simple. If you're really that concerned, or if you're trying to just make sure you don't make yourself susceptible to something, just follow the rules of social distancing. But you don't need to wear a mask all the time. I don't feel like it's necessary.
Just for a hack, if you're gonna wear the mask and you're concerned about breathing and oxygen levels, you could also put a couple drops of peppermint, lavender, and or eucalyptus in your mask. So therefore, if you are, because it ain't really protecting you the way you think it is. So if you are ingesting those globules, whatever it is that they say is in the air, it'll be the virus will be neutralized through the essential oils, as well as you breathing in the essential oils. You'll be oxygenating your cells, because once again, the essential oils are the regenerating, oxygenating, and immune stimulating qualities of the plant. So use the technology.
Yeah. So Sinette B says she saw a lecture in 2015 about radiation from cell phones that stimulated the effect on heads. The cell phone radiation has been directly linked to low sperm count, breast cancer in women and men. The scientists explained the difference between the healthy and the hurting frequency. It is in the pattern, be it a regular or irregular pattern. Do offer that. And it would be very interesting to watch that video. And have you seen it? Are you familiar with that? Okay.
No. So, and that's 2015. It's 2020. So now they talk about upgrading the technology, and they forgot that they put this information out already. So that big.
Okay. Here we go. Question: what steps can be taken to get checkpoints for testing the family's own, especially to find out what's going on in these hospitals to find a cure? Some are going to have to go out and survey the community ourselves. So I think he's talking about what steps can be taken for us to check whether or not we have the virus or had the virus, and then to test cures on ourselves, like we as a community, versus like waiting for the medical community. Bilal, I'm interpreting your question as that, like rather than waiting for the medical community and the pharmaceutical companies to come up with a cure, what is the process by which we can come up with our own cure?
Like I said, 1 ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. That's all we're left with. We can only use preventative measures. And in the naturopathic field, you got to know how to cleanse, rebuild, and maintain. That's the fundamentals of how to maintain your health. It doesn't, remember, the virus is nothing. The virus is not there to kill you. Your body just has to be compromised in order to download or activate the virus. So the virus is not the enemy. Poor lifestyle is the thing that opens you up to this thing. So just always keep that in mind. that virus might have always been there, but due to the high levels of toxicity now, we're more vulnerable to things we never been vulnerable to before. So keep your gut health together. So make sure everyone's regular.
Yeah. Yeah. So Baba joined us. Uncle my us, Baba Haru. Very good to see you. Good.
So let us get into Moringa, which the session that Sue told us is called Ba'ak, right?
Ba'ak.
Mm-hmm. So they used moringa oil back in ancient Kemet. I think they found in the 18th dynasty the tomb of someone named Maya. They found 10 jars of moringa oil. The ancient Kemites used moringa seeds as a form of water purification. So what it causes the bacteria in the water to fuse together and drop down to the bottom of the bucket, therefore leaving the water primarily pure. And so it's a water purification system. There's a book called An Ancient Egyptian Herbal by Lise Manichi, and she revealed some of the treatments that the ancient Kemites used. But I'll get into that in a minute. According to the Asian Journal of Cancer Prevention, Moringa oleifera induces cancer apoptosis. That's an interesting word. Apoptosis is connected to the word apep. Apoptosis is cell death. And apep is the eater of the light. It's all in the divine order of things. They said Ra has to constantly create himself or create Ma'at every day from apep.
Yeah.
So there is a place for cell death in the divine scheme of things that just cannot go unchecked. So it says Moringa induces cancer apoptosis. Apoptosis is natural. Apoptosis is a form of cell death in which a programmed sequence of events leads to the elimination of cells without releasing harmful substances into the surrounding area. So it efficiently eliminates dysfunctional cells. That's what apoptosis is, the body's ability to eliminate dysfunctional cells. So now what cancer does, cancer interferes in natural apoptosis. So now dysfunctional cells begin to proliferate inside the body, and that's what cancer is. Oxidation. So the hallmark of cancer is the ability of malignant cells to evade apoptosis. It stops the body from eliminating damaged DNA. So now go back to that book, an ancient Egyptian herbal. It said they use moringa oil for their skin to protect themselves from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. They use moringa oil as insect repellent. And they use it as a carrier oil for perfumes and medicine. So we could, I think I see moringa oil up in the health food store. We could try that out this summer.
Yeah.
Especially if we don't know if this so-called virus gets transmitted by bugs. That's going to be a real problem. Because I think they said there's some documentation of some cats and some animals that actually contracted this virus. So if that's the case, then moringa oil will come in good and handy.
During mosquito season.
Yeah. It says stomach problems, moringa oil, honey, frankincense, wine, which will be boiled from a paste and then eaten. So for any type of stomach problems, frankincense is an antiviral also. Honey is an antiviral, and now we see like moringa has immune stimulating qualities. Remember it said for stomach problems. What did we say last time? We said that 70% of the immune system is in the digestive tract. So that combination, moringa, honey, and frankincense, is pretty much immune modulating things that you can put inside your body. So keep that gut right. You don't got too much to worry about. It says for cramps, moringa oil, barley flour, ox fat, boiled and eaten. For sore gums, moringa oil, gum, fig, okra, and water rubbed onto the gum. For earache, remember these are all ancient remedies. Moringa oil, cucumber, and okra put into the ear. And also, like I said, mosquito repellent. So our ancient ancestors were very big on moringa. Even in India, as far back as 2000 BC, they use it for their science called Ayurveda, which is the science of life. So according to Ayurveda, moringa is the cure, or moringa prevents or gives you protection against 300 diseases. So we all heard of Alexander, the so-called great, who was supposed to be a great conquering Greek hero that never lost a battle. He lost one battle, and he lost that battle in India. I think around 326 BC, he fought the Indians, and the Indians wore him out. Do you know why?
I don't know why. Because of moringa oil.
Yeah. Yeah. They said they were on a special diet of moringa oil, and he said these cats barely needed no sleep, and their wounds healed at a faster rate than normal. So pretty much he wore Alexander and them out. So moringa is something serious. So it's been used in Kemet, it's been used in India. Moringa is known as the miracle tree, or the mother's milk. So it's one of the most nutritionally dense plants on the planet. So it has 27 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids. I think it's 22 essential amino acids, so it has 9 of those. And it has 46 antioxidants and some of the major trace minerals. So its nutritional profile. So moringa has 2 times the protein of yogurt, 4 times the vitamin A of carrots,
Keep going.
3 times the potassium of bananas, 4 times the calcium of milk, 7 times the vitamin C of oranges, and that's the live plant. So when it's dry, when the moringa leaves are taken and dried, the nutritional store builds up even more. So when you deal with the dried leaves, it's 17 times. Remember, the live plant is 4 times the vitamin A of carrots. When it's dried leaves, it's 17 or 10 times the vitamin A of carrots, 17 times the calcium of milk, 15 times the potassium of bananas, 25 times the iron of spinach, and 9 times the protein in yogurt. So according to some studies, it's shown to boost the immunity in HIV patients, lower the blood pressure, and improve digestion. There we go with improving digestion again. You improve the digestion, you're going to improve the immune response. So now, in conjunction with the black seed oil, and which is known as the panacea, meaning the cure of all diseases, and you have moringa oil, known as the miracle oil. That is like your yin yang combination to full health. I like to believe that those that's most impacted by this new disease are people that have a poor nutritional stock. So if you get your black seed oil in your moringa and build up your nutrition stock and keep a strong mental stance, I believe you'll be impervious to it. If not, even if you get it, it'll have the least deleterious effect, according, in contrast to the other people that's been impacted by it. Because when we're talking about the black community, we're still talking about people that's primarily unhealthy, people that don't know about black seed oil or things like moringa. When I was at the health food store last week, there's a line outside. It's good to see a line going outside the health food store. You see it at the supermarket, but the health food store, and it was in the hood, regular hood people. Like if I walked down the street, I would have never thought they would be the type of people that would be up in the health food store. So I was leaving, and I was overhearing a lady talking about how her daughter had the virus, and she was dealing with it with the natural remedies, and that did better than the stuff that the doctors were prescribing. So she was back there getting her second round. She was like, yo, this stuff really worked. So we have to take responsibility to the best of our ability to know ourselves, because we can read the same books the doctors read, and when we run into some confusion, we speak to a health professional. We're like, give me clarity on this part. You can read those same books. Your health is your responsibility first. It doesn't make sense to walk around with your body 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years and sit down in front of a total stranger and be like, doc, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't know what you've been eating, what you haven't been eating, what's going on with your emotional state. You are with you every day.
Right.
So in our community, to respect the doctors, we go to the doctor to get the checkup, we get the testing, we get the diagnosis. They're good for that. And then in our community, we alone do our own thing with the treatment of it. And sometimes we got to do a little bit of both. But we are meiotic people, so we have to exercise when we you know,
Right.
the wisdom and how to do both, and not
Right.
to just shun medical stuff, and not to just go to. A lot of people that go with the natural stuff, they're not as thorough in it as they think they are. So even with the natural stuff, you need to speak to health professionals in the natural field, just like, you know, the medical profession. You speak to the
Yeah.
doctor, speak to the natural certified natural
Yeah.
health practitioners, and don't get too crazy trying to over medicate yourself, because each one of us are individuals. So both sides, the doctor and the naturopath, has to sit down with you and find out, okay, why do you have a headache and a stomach ache as opposed to this other person having a headache or a stomach ache? So you have different conditions that create this condition than the next person. So do yourself justice, and just get
It's the responsible
yeah,
thing. It's the responsible thing to do, because you could be taking all the right things, you could be taking them in the wrong doses, you could be taking the right things, but you could be taking them at the wrong times of day, or you could be taking them in the wrong combinations.
Yeah.
So making sure you speak to somebody who is certified and who is a professional is the way to ensure that you have the right results. Because otherwise, you're just doing it. You're not necessarily guaranteeing results. We got a couple questions though. We had a question from somebody asking, is moringa powder as good as moringa oil to use?
I think the moringa oil is for physical, the outside. I would say, like, for the concerns we're talking about, get the moringa powder, the dry leaf moringa powder.
Okay.
Or actually moringa seeds, and you can put that in your smoothie.
Okay. Another comment was we have to be willing to accept the ancestral cure without approval from the mainstream, and without it being necessarily being comfortable. That was just a comment, like, as we talk about that thing. I think that was Yasekra.
Right. I remember.
Yeah.
True to that.
Yeah. I'll agree with that, because what I've experienced, even my own family, is like that people don't want to do the natural thing because the natural thing is nasty. Like, like they'll be like, moringa powder paste, and I'm like, you will be cured in a day. And they're like, oh, but it's nasty. I would rather just go to the doctor and take this toxic prescription that doesn't taste like anything and is going to take me 3 months to get healed. They're like, why?
I'm like the opposite. If it ain't tasting nasty, I'm sorry. Why is it tasting good?
Well, I definitely have experienced that, where people are just like, I don't want to take it if it's nasty. And yeah, like, sometimes natural stuff is nasty. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you. Sometimes it is. Like, you just got to do it. Especially if you're either boosting your immune system to deal with an issue, or if it's an existing issue, like, you can't want to take the easy way out of something. Like, there is no, just because you know what to do. Wabet Kisa said that earlier. Just because you know what to do doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and doesn't mean it's going to be enjoyable. And so you can't just, like, think that knowing what to do is the answer to the situation. Like, you actually have to do it. You're gonna have to buckle down. This is an area where discipline and structure is required, because in order for you to have the freedom that you live the rest of your life without this condition, without this health illness, without this thing plaguing you, because you go to the doctor and they'll tell you, oh, you got high blood pressure and we need you to be on this blood pressure medication for the rest of your life. Like, we talk about this natural thing is like, we're going to help you bring down your blood pressure and then help maintain it so you don't have to take medication, so you don't have a high blood pressure issue. So we're not talking about like, oh, sorry, this issue is something that's going to plague you the rest of your life. We're talking about, like, get some discipline, get some structure, and then you don't have to deal with that issue ever again. And now you have the freedom to live the rest of your life as a healthy individual. And all you have to do from that point forward is maintain that health, right? So it's not necessarily easy, and it's not necessarily fun. We still got to do it.
That, a secret hack to your health, like, if you're one of the ones complaining about it's nasty, most likely you're acidic, because we live in a society where they got us hooked on artificial sugar, and sugar makes you acidic. So everyone's been programmed to have this sweet tooth. So if it's not tasting sugary or sweet, you're thinking it's nasty. When you go with the bitters in nature, the bitters are actually anti-cancer. So you got to learn to change. Like, sweets are considered to be immature. When you're preoccupied with sweets, that's considered you're like a little baby. So when you gotta learn to normalize your taste buds to the bitter. So when the bitter starts tasting normal to you, that's when you know that you're in balance. But if you're gonna make that face every time you take your root tonic or your Coromonti and stuff like that, that's a sign that you're still too acidic.
Yeah. Somebody asked if you have a recommendation for a good brand of moringa.
I think an African company is called Moringa Revealed. That was the first time I took it, and I think they're actually over there in Africa. And for over here in the States, is a brother named Chief X. He has his own line of moringa. He's over in California. So always go with black first if we can. So those are the two black or African owned companies.
Yeah, and if anyone else knows of a black owned company or with moringa powder in particular, feel free to post that a link or a name in the chat, in either chat.
Once again, Moringa Reveal, or check out Chief X's Moringa.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
Was this was it New York hospital?
It's a link from Bunham that says that New York hospitals are treating coronavirus patients with vitamin C. I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago, right?
So,
yeah.
So even the doctors are having to relent back to nature. Their hands are tied. They don't know. So that's part of the fear. So when you got the medical professional be like, yo, I don't know. And I don't know when we're going to figure this out. So now the people that was never responsible for their health, they get scared because now their deities or their priesthood of the medical profession don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But once again, you could read the same books and your mind is yours. It goes back to mind your mind. It goes back to actually, who are you? And what is it that you're here to do? Like it goes back to what you were saying in your last communion about identity. And about free will. So you got the right to listen to somebody else and try to have them take responsibility on how you live, or do you know who you are? Can you get in tune with natural principles, the principles that we believe establish the universe?
Yeah.
Because we have to understand that man or human is God or nature in the inverse. I think y'all understand when I say inverse. We see the upside down pyramid, and human or man is ascending divine being. So when you have that ascending meeting that descending, and when it merges, it creates what's called the hexagram.
Yeah.
Or the hexagon. The hexagram is a 6-pointed star. So now the pyramid has always been used as a symbol as representing power or the generation of power. So when you look at that word hexagon or hexagram, the root to that word is hex. It comes from the Latin, it means spell or ceremony, but it goes back before the Latin. It goes back to the actual middle letter from heka, which the Egyptologists say means spells. And I think we were just listening to Jabari. He said he doesn't like that word spell. And so I like the word spell.
I like the
idea of magic.
I like magic. People be like, what is hekau? I'll be like, magic. Hekau is magic. Like, I'm not scared on any level.
So we'll say, if you don't like spell, I say spiritual authority, because heka or hekau doesn't necessarily or just mean words. It means your mental posture. It also means your breathing. It also means your spiritual uniform. It also means your environment that you got set up towards a certain thing. All of that becomes heka or hekau, which they say called juju in voodoo and stuff. So that symbol represents spiritual authority. It means one who is integrated is as above with is so below. So they say men are mortal gods and gods are immortal men. So as above, so below. So when you're living that reality, when you embrace that reality, when you personify that reality, then we say we're living in truth. We say we ankh in ma'at. We're living in truth. So when they say, in order to know the truth, you must first live it. And when you live the truth, then you become the authority of the truth. So as above, so below. Men are gods and gods are mortal men. It is clarified when you follow the directives of your spirit, which comes to you intuitively. And if you can't get it intuitively, you might need to rely on a priest or priestess through the arts of divination to get clarity. So, because sometimes you don't know how to listen to yourself. You might have to lean on someone else's connection to divine spirit to tell you what's already been told to you, but you just didn't know how to listen. So it's about when you find out how to receive directives from your spirit, then you use all of your faculties and all your characteristics to the service of the spirit. Understand, all your characteristics towards the service of your spirit. That's what you call building character. Because when you use all your characteristics to follow the directives of the spirit, because that comes in intuition. You have no proof. You don't even have a scientific process. It just gets communicated in its purest form, which is a wave, which is a vibration. So building character means you got to follow that. You got to follow that directive, and then you go out and experience life. You're gonna make some mistakes, but all those mistakes are lessons to build your character. And as you build your character, it's going to show you your purpose. I think there was a saying said, make the self the focus of intense
inquiry,
and then you'll find its direction, its purpose, and its goal.
Yeah.
So the goal of life is not about your job, not about your job, it's not about your career, it's not about money. It's about following directives of the spirit. And when you could successfully, humbly submit to the directives of your spirit, then and only then you have access to unlimited resources. I'll repeat that. When you successfully submit to the directives of the spirit, then you have unlimited access, or you have access to unlimited resources.
Yeah.
That's the most valuable lesson. That's the most scariest lesson, because nowadays people are chasing the resources. They be like, I'll get with the spirituality later, chasing the resources. So now with this quarantine, we're forced to drop out and now tune in.
Yeah.
As we drop out and as we tune in, we now have to search for clarity. And as we get our clarity, then we could now move forward with purpose. So now it's time to repurpose everything in our lives. So now when we come out of this quarantine, no one should have no excuse of being distracted. No one should not be on their purpose.
Right.
So this is a time to cultivate discipline. And we're always talking about freedom in our community and freedom in our movement, but sometimes you can't even perceive a freedom until you know the limitations, until you know the restrictions.
Yeah.
And it's going to be your discipline. It's going to be your discipline that helps you navigate all the situations, and it's going to be your discipline that actually liberates you.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were under the impression that they had freedom, but they just had enough freedom to hang themselves. So it's all going to come back to discipline and how to navigate yourself within the restrictions and the limitations. And that freedom, or that discipline, is going to make you free. That discipline is Heru. Heru is the falcon. In Swahili, they say uhuru means freedom. So falcons represent the highest flying bird out of the whole species. So Heru is a cognate of huru, which is freedom, the freedom of the falcon to fly the heights. What we got? What we looking at?
I don't know what that link is because I didn't click on it. Bilal asks, or here's another recommendation, my olive leaf, as far as like where to get herbs, moringa oil, moringa powder, etc. Bilal said, to clarify what conditions this virus is targeting the family's environments, we have to go through the community and find out how entrenched in the family environment it is. Instead of them coming into our environment, don't we have the responsibility to go out and clear the way and get true counts of who is sick and not sick? And if the community is not infected, then they are safe to move freely by taking census data from real-time data collection.
That's interesting. I can't disagree.
Yeah, it is a correct assessment of what would happen, and also I feel like there's a need to acknowledge that it's not happening because of our lack of organization as community and our lack of our over dependence on like the governmental structures to do that work. So while I think what you're suggesting is that we should be doing that for each other and for ourselves, like I just don't think that we're in that place yet. And I think maybe that's another discussion we want to have at another time about like what does it take to get us to that place where we're not relying on the government to tell us that it's safe and things like that, or tell us that it's not safe, that we are governing ourselves in that regard, and therefore that we are keeping each other safe, that we are monitoring the situation, that we are testing each other or testing ourselves, like all of that. Like I think there's there's infrastructure concerns there as far as like what infrastructure we as a Black community don't have to be able to do that. And that's just the most honest thing I could say. It may not be the nicest thing to say or the thing you want to hear, but I do think that we struggle with that. And I think we have this very idealized perspective around, like, you know, our own self-governance and our self-determination. And until we become serious about discipline and structure and about putting these structures in place and you know, all of that, and unifying despite differences and all that kind of stuff, like, if we don't put that in place, then it's all ideal. It's not. None of it is realistic. Oops, sorry. Yasek Ray said we only want to indulge in community support during times of crisis. That's not African. We need to live as a community even when everything is good, or never. And that's absolutely the case. Like, I agree with that. And actually, one of the things that I didn't say earlier, we were talking yesterday about this whole thing around family. And one of the things that I was saying is, like, do I need to teach a lesson on family, or like, do I need to teach a workshop on what it means to be family? And I think that what I'm coming down to, and just sitting here and listening to this conversation, and reading the words of, you know, Bilal's questions, and even the things that Yasek Ray's been posting on YouTube, is like, before we talk about how to be a family, we also have to talk about how we heal from the issues that our families inflicted on us. So more than anything, there's first and foremost, like, a necessity for us to commit to our healing and commit to putting a resolution on our past and being okay with, like, walking forward and without those issues and without those traumas. So therefore not identifying those traumas as ourselves, right? And then secondly, like, how as part of that healing, and then the next step of that healing is also, like, how do we create the right structures so that we can move forward as a community through good times and bad, right?
So just gave us the answer from the Sebahi. There you go. Right there.
From the instructions of Ankh Shashank. He says, serve your God that he may guard you. Serve your brothers that you may have a good reputation. Serve a wise man that he may serve you. Serve him who serves you. Serve any man that you may find profit. Serve your father and your mother that you may go and prosper. Examine every matter that you may understand it. That last line is significant in this situation. I say the whole thing is significant in this situation, because I think it's interesting that a lot of people think that community, again, we talked about how community is restrictive, but, like, it feels restrictive because you're required to serve, and you're required to care about other people outside of yourself, and you're required to care about what's important to them, even if what's important to them is not important to you. And that's why I said what I said before, the example I gave about showing up for people when it's for them and it's not for you, and you don't necessarily want to show up. It's about service. It's about how you give into this thing so that when it's time for you to get out of this thing, there's something in the pot for you to take out. And I don't think people are always understanding that. And I think the more that we understand that, and the more that we have a really healthy perspective on family and community, the more that we'll be willing to invest in that and then build the thing that we idealize. But until we have a healthy perspective, we just keep idealizing this thing that no one's willing to invest in, right? And no one's willing to work on, because no one wants to be the first one to be vulnerable. No one wants to be the first one to be service oriented. No one wants to be the first. I don't want to serve you. I want you to serve me first and prove to me that I should maybe consider doing this. And so until we get to the point where people are willing to put those traumas and those issues to the side, we'll just continue to be like, I wish we as a Black community could come together. Like, that's real nice. And we could come together. We can come together, but it's going to require service. Yeah. But you gave a lot of information about Moringa, about health, Dua for that, and Dua also for the context around, like, Haru and how we think about Haru, because again, we always talk about the Neteru as, like, these divine beings that, and we talk about the Neteru exists within us as us, so we need to understand, like, how that energy of Haru shows up in our beings as freedom and as willpower, how it shows up in our lives as freedom, how it shows up in our relationships as freedom, how it shows up in our choices as freedom. Like, how does that Haru faculty show up at all times, so we can identify it as divinity, not just like, oh, this is nice that I have this freedom. Like, no, this is a divine gift of, this is the divine gift of Haru. That I have this freedom. So do I netta for that? And again, that goes back to, like, how we cultivate that attitude of gratitude. Because if you start to see everything as a divine gift, like, oh, these warm socks is a divine gift of Geb. You know, this beautiful oxygen is the divine gift of Shu. This warm sunlight on my skin is the divine gift of Ra. You know, thank you. So everything is a divine gift. And so if everything is a divine gift, then everything is a reason to be grateful to the Neteru. So how do we shift our perspective to be able to see everything as a divine gift? We have to see the Neteru in every aspect of a thing. So we have to see, like, Haru is not just like the warrior that defeats the Tesh. What's the metaphor in that? And how does that metaphor play out in our lives?
Mm-hmm. We just preaching to the choir today.
I guess so. They heard everything. Like, we got it. We got it. We know. We got all these things.
Jabari wore them out.
With Ascension earlier. Ascension was excellent. It was excellent. So dua to Hemneta Haru Jedin Ma'at Atenra and Hemet Or Infraka Ma'at for their continued energy and service to the community and the work that they do. We mer them so much, and we miss them as well. And we mer you guys too, and we miss you guys so much. Like, you know, just the in-person thing, like the experience of seeing some of y'all faces, hugging folks, all that kind of stuff. I want to just thank people again for the donations to our PayPal and to our Cash App. And for anyone who is interested in making a donation, a reminder that our Cash App is $Temple of Anu, and the PayPal is templeofanu@gmail.com. I want to thank those of you who have still been placing orders. I have been going to Staples about once a week to drop off candle orders. We recently re-upped on the Art of Prayer, so we've got a few copies of Art of Prayer available on the website as well right now. So, you know, get your candles so you can continue to do your spiritual work, for your meditations, for your prayer time, for your invocations to the Neteru, for your, as you cultivate your attitude of gratitude. And then also just like, you know, the purification in the air, like burning your incense, burning your sacred, you know, your scented candles and things like that, keeping the energy of your house vibrationally charged and vibrationally high. Just continue to do that. I strongly encourage you guys. Nasid talked about the essential oils yesterday. Do your breathing exercises. Use your essential oils.
Your diffuser.
Use your diffuser. Yeah, absolutely. And keep the vibration in your home and in yourself as high as humanly possible at all times. Because that's really going to be one of the main things that hopes to get us through. And so Dua, we're very grateful to you guys. And we'll be back next Sunday at 1 o'clock for our regularly scheduled communion. And then 2 weeks from today, we'll be back again at 3 p.m. for the next episode of The Crook and the Flail. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So Jenny... There you go, posted a question. He said, in what ways can our ritual practice be beneficial to our general health? Do you want to answer that now, or you want to hold that?
That would be a good communion.
That would be a good communion. So I actually feel, so Jenny, I'm going to take that question and we'll work on that for next Sunday, because I actually want to give that like significant time. I feel like that's an excellent question. And I don't want to give it a he said I answered it. I'm gonna answer it again. I don't care. I'm gonna answer it again. I'm gonna give it some more time because I really like that question. Thank you. I think it's important to answer it again so that people make a direct connection between the conversations we've been having about health and the benefits of ritual practice to our health, because we talk about ritual and then we talk about health, and people can very easily think that we're talking about separate things, but we are talking about a holistic lifestyle all the time. So to address that in a deeper way or in a more extensive way is a necessity. So dua for asking the question, and it'll be a part of next week's communion, I think. Okay. All right. Well, Shemi Matep, everybody. Mer Tanu.